When my son's wife called me dead weight behind my back, she had no idea I was listening or that I had been quietly making plans that would change everything. Let's just say some people are about to learn that underestimating a grandmother might be the biggest mistake they ever make. But what happens when the person everyone thinks is powerless decides to show them just how wrong they really are? The coffee mug slips from my trembling hands and crashes against the kitchen floor, sending pieces of my favorite china scattered across the tiles like my heart feels right now. From the living room, I can hear my son Kyler's voice getting louder as he argues with his wife Kendrea about money again, but this time they're talking about me like I'm not even human. My stroke last year left me needing help with simple things like opening jars and remembering to take my medicine, but I never thought my own family would see me as nothing more than a burden they have to carry. The medical bills are crushing us, Kendria. Kyler says, and I can hear the exhaustion in his voice that breaks my heart every single day. Mom's insurance only covers so much, and between her medications and the physical therapy, we're barely keeping our heads above water. I press my back against the kitchen wall, holding my breath so they won't know I'm listening to every word that's about to destroy what's left of my world. I know she didn't ask for any of this to happen, but I don't know how much longer we can keep going like this. That's when Kendria says the words that will haunt me for the rest of my life, spoken with such casual cruelty that I have to bite my lip to keep from crying out loud. Your mother is dead weight, Kyla, and you know it. She's dragging us down financially and emotionally, and I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not. The room starts spinning around me as I realize that the woman my son married, the mother of my grandchildren, thinks I'm nothing more than an obstacle standing between her and her perfect life. She can barely take care of herself anymore, Kendria continues, her voice getting stronger as she builds her case against me like a lawyer in court. We can't go anywhere or do anything because someone always has to be here to watch her. The kids are starting to ask questions about why Grandma can't remember things, and honestly, I don't know what to tell them anymore. Each word feels like a knife cutting deeper into my chest, but I can't stop listening because I need to know exactly how much my own family has grown to hate having me around. I hear Kyler trying to defend me, but his words sound weak and unconvincing even to my own ears. She raised me by herself after Dad died, Kendrea. She worked 2 jobs to put me through college and never asked for anything in return. I can't just abandon her now, when she needs us most. But Kendria's response cuts through his guilt like a sword through paper, and I can tell she's been thinking about this conversation for a long time. And look where that got her, she snaps back. Dependent on us for everything, living in our house, eating our food, using our money for her endless doctor appointments and medications. We're not her caregivers, Kyla. We're her children, and we deserve to have our own lives without constantly worrying about whether she's going to fall down the stairs or forget to turn off the stove. The cruelty in her voice makes me realize that this isn't just about money or convenience. This is about her wanting me gone, wanting me erased from their lives so she can have my son all to herself. I slide down the wall until I'm sitting on the cold kitchen floor, surrounded by the broken pieces of my coffee mug and the broken pieces of my heart. This house has been my home for over 30 years. The place where I brought Kyler home from the hospital, where I nursed him through childhood illnesses, where I taught him to ride a bike, and helped him with homework, and celebrated every milestone of his life. Now it feels like a prison where I'm trapped with people who see me as nothing more than a problem that needs to be solved. We need to start looking at assisted living facilities, Kendria says, and I can hear her moving around the living room, probably pacing the way she does when she's making plans. I've already done some research, and there are some nice places that accept Medicare. She'd be safer there, with trained professionals who know how to deal with people in her condition. The way she says her condition makes it sound like I have some kind of disease instead of just being an old woman who had a stroke and needs a little help sometimes. That night, lying in my bed and staring at the ceiling, I make a decision that surprises even me. I'm not going to sit here and let them ship me off to some nursing home like a piece of furniture they don't want anymore. I'm not dead weight, no matter what Kendria thinks, and I'm not helpless just because I need help sometimes. I raised a son, worked for 40 years, and paid off this house through sheer determination and sacrifice. If they think I'm the problem, then maybe it's time to show them what happens when the problem removes itself from the equation. I reach for my phone with shaking fingers and scroll through my contacts until I find the number for Cortlin, my realtor friend from church. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something that will shock everyone, including myself. But tonight, I'm just going to lie here and remember what it felt like when people saw me as a person instead of a burden. Tomorrow, everything changes. And Kendria is going to learn that calling someone dead weight might be the biggest mistake she ever made in her life. The phone rings 3 times before Cortland's cheerful voice fills my ear, and I have to take a deep breath before I can even speak the words that are about to turn my world upside down. Cortland, it's Chris Henderson. I need to ask you something important, and I need you to promise me you won't try to talk me out of it. There's a pause on the other end, and I can almost hear her switching from friend mode to business mode as she realizes this isn't a social call. Of course, honey. What's going on? She asks. And I can hear genuine concern in her voice that makes me feel less alone than I have in months. I want to sell my house, Cortlin, as quickly as possible. Cash sale if we can manage it. And I don't want anyone to know about it until the papers are signed. The silence that follows stretches on so long that I start to wonder if the call dropped. But then she clears her throat in that way people do when they're trying to process something shocking. Chris, are you sure about this? This is your home, your sanctuary. What's brought this on so suddenly? I close my eyes and picture Kendria's face when she called me dead weight. The casual cruelty in her voice that told me exactly what she thinks of me. Let's just say I've had my eyes opened about some things, and I've decided it's time to make a change while I still can. Cortlin knows me well enough to hear the determination in my voice, and after a moment, she sighs in that way that means she's switching into professional mode. Well, if you're serious about this, I have to tell you that your timing is actually perfect. The housing market in your neighborhood has exploded in the last year, and corner lots like yours are pure gold to developers. She pauses, and I can hear her typing on her computer. I'd need to do a proper assessment, but based on recent sales in your area, you could be looking at anywhere from $700,000 to over $1 million, depending on the condition and the exact square footage. The number hits me like a lightning bolt, and I have to sit down hard in my kitchen chair as the reality of what she's saying sinks in. $1 million. For the little house that my husband and I bought for $35,000 back in 1981, when this neighborhood was still considered the outskirts of town. Are you serious? I whisper, and she laughs in that way that tells me she's absolutely serious. Dead serious, honey. Your property sits on almost half an acre in one of the most desirable areas in the city now. Young professionals are paying premium prices for that kind of space, especially with the original hardwood floors and vintage charm that your house has. I look around my kitchen with new eyes, seeing not just the place where I've made countless meals and memories, but an asset that could give me the freedom to start over anywhere I want. How quickly could we make this happen? I ask, and I can hear her fingers flying across her keyboard as she checks her schedule. I could have a photographer out there tomorrow afternoon to take listing photos. And if we price it right, it could be on the market by the end of the week. In this market, with a cash offer, we could have papers signed within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I could be free of this house where I'm seen as nothing more than a burden, free to start over somewhere else where nobody knows my story or thinks of me as dead weight. After we hang up, I spend the rest of the morning walking through every room of this house, seeing it through the eyes of potential buyers instead of through the lens of my own memories. The hardwood floors that my husband refinished himself after we moved in, the built-in bookcases where I displayed my collection of romance novels, the big windows that let in so much natural light that I never needed lamps during the day. This house is beautiful, I realize, not just to me, but to anyone who appreciates craftsmanship and character. I'm standing in my bedroom, looking at the closet full of clothes that I've accumulated over the years, when I hear Kyla's car pull into the driveway. My heart starts racing as I realize that in just a few hours, Everything I know about my life is going to change forever. He calls out a greeting as he comes through the front door, and I can hear Kendrea's voice behind him, talking on her phone about some work project that she thinks is more important than anything else in the world. Mom, we brought Chinese food for dinner, Kyla calls out, and I can hear the forced cheerfulness in his voice that tells me he's still thinking about their conversation from yesterday. Hope you're hungry. I make my way downstairs slowly, using the banister for support, and find them unpacking containers of food in the kitchen. Kendria barely looks up from her phone, but Kyla gives me a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. How was your day, sweetheart? I ask, settling into my usual chair at the table. And for just a moment, I feel like we're a normal family having a normal dinner together. But then Kendria makes a comment about the mess I left in the kitchen from my morning coffee. And the spell is broken. She sees me as a problem, a burden, someone who can't even clean up after herself properly, and I realize that no amount of love or patience on my part is going to change her mind about who I am. That night, after they've gone to bed, I sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a notepad, making lists of everything I need to do to prepare for this new chapter of my life. I need to decide what to keep and what to leave behind, where I want to live, and how I want to spend the rest of my years. For the first time since my stroke, I feel like I have choices again, like I'm not just a passenger in my own life, but the driver of my own destiny. The house feels different now that I know I'm going to sell it, less like a prison and more like a launching pad for whatever comes next. Tomorrow, when Courtlin comes with her photographer, this house is going to become a commodity, a product to be marketed and sold to the highest bidder. But tonight, it's still my home, still the place where I raised my son and loved my husband and built a life that meant something to me, even if it doesn't mean anything to anyone else anymore. The bright red sold sign stares back at me from my front lawn like a beacon of my newfound freedom, and I can't help but smile as I watch Kendrea stumble out of the house in her bathrobe, her perfect morning routine completely shattered by this unexpected surprise. She's clutching her coffee mug so tightly that her knuckles have turned white, and her mouth is opening and closing like a fish gasping for air as she tries to process what she's seeing. The look of pure shock and panic on her face is worth every sleepless night I've spent planning this moment, every tear I've cried over her cruel words about me being dead weight. Kyla! She screams at the top of her lungs, her voice cracking with hysteria as she spins around to look at the house like it might disappear if she blinks too hard. Kyla, get out here right now! I position myself at my bedroom window, where I can see everything but remain hidden behind the lace curtains that my grandmother made for me 50 years ago. This is the moment I've been waiting for. The moment when Kendria realizes that the old woman she dismissed as powerless actually holds all the cards in this game she thought she was winning. Kyla appears in the doorway, wearing his work clothes and holding his travel mug, clearly expecting another normal day in what he thinks is his stable, predictable life. But when he sees the sold sign, his face goes through a series of expressions that would be comical if they weren't so heartbreaking. First confusion, then disbelief, then a dawning horror as he realizes that his entire world has just been turned upside down without any warning or discussion. He drops his coffee mug, and it shatters on the front steps, sending hot liquid splashing across the porch that I swept just yesterday morning. What is this? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. But Kendria is already in full panic mode, pacing back and forth across the lawn in her slippers like a caged animal. She can't do this to us, Kyla. This is our home. Our children live here. Where are we supposed to go? Her voice is getting higher and more frantic with each word. And I can see neighbors starting to peek out of their windows to see what all the commotion is about. Mrs. Chen from next door is standing on her porch pretending to water her plants, but I know she's listening to every word of this drama unfolding in my front yard. I take my time getting dressed and making my way downstairs, each step deliberate and measured as I prepare for the confrontation that's been building for months. My cane taps against each step as I descend, and I can hear their voices getting more agitated as they try to figure out how their comfortable arrangement has suddenly collapsed around them. When I finally open the front door, they both turn to stare at me like I'm a stranger who has invaded their lives, which in a way I suppose I am. The woman they thought they knew would never have done something this bold, this decisive, this final. "Good morning," I say pleasantly, as if this is just another ordinary day, and not the day I'm reclaiming my life from people who took it for granted. "I see you noticed the sign." "Yes, the house sold. Cash offer, actually. Quite a bit over asking price." Kendria makes a sound that's somewhere between a gasp and a sob, while Kyler just stares at me like he's never seen me before in his life. The silence stretches between us like a rope that's about to snap, and I can feel the weight of 40 years of motherhood pressing down on my shoulders. "Mom, what have you done?" Kyler finally manages to ask, and I can hear the little boy in his voice, the same tone he used when he broke my favorite vase playing baseball in the house when he was 8 years old. "We live here. This is our home. Where are we supposed to go?" I look at my son, this man I raised from a helpless infant to a grown adult with children of his own, and I feel a mixture of love and disappointment that threatens to break my heart all over again. "Your home?" I repeat quietly, letting the words hang in the air between us. "This has been my home for 32 years, Kyla. I bought it with your father before you were even born. You've been living here rent-free for the past 3 years, and apparently that's made you forget that my name is the only one on the deed." Kendria steps forward like she's going to argue, but something in my expression stops her cold. For the first time since I've known her, she seems to realize that she might have pushed too far, that the quiet old woman she's been dismissing might not be as helpless as she assumed. "But where will we live?" Kendria asks. And now her voice has taken on a whining quality that makes me think of my grandchildren when they don't get their way. "We can't just move out in 30 days. We have jobs, the kids have school, we have a life here." I nod sympathetically, as if I'm truly concerned about their predicament, which, in a way, I am. I never wanted to hurt my son, but sometimes the only way to help someone is to stop enabling their bad choices. "I'm sure you'll figure something out," I tell them, my voice steady and calm despite the storm of emotions churning inside my chest. "You're both intelligent, capable adults with good jobs and healthy children. Many people manage to find housing without having a parent provide it for free." The truth of those words hits Kyler like a physical blow, and I can see him realizing for the first time how much he's been taking advantage of my generosity, how comfortable he's become, living in a house he never had to pay for. The new owners take possession in 3 weeks. I continue, pulling the sale documents from my purse to show them that this isn't some bluff or negotiating tactic. "I'll be moving to Florida next Monday. I've already made arrangements with a moving company to take my belongings." Kendria grabs the papers from my hands and scans them frantically, as if she might find some loophole or mistake that will make all of this go away. But the numbers are real and the signatures are legal and binding. $850,000? She gasps, her eyes widening as she realizes the true value of what they're losing. "You sold our home for $850,000? I can practically see the calculator running in her head as she does the math, figuring out how much money they could have inherited if they had just treated me with basic human decency, instead of like a burden they couldn't wait to get rid of. "I sold my home," I correct her firmly. "And yes, apparently it was worth quite a bit more than anyone realized. The real estate market has been very good to long-term homeowners like myself." I can see Kyler struggling with something, his face cycling through anger and confusion, and what might even be a glimmer of understanding. He's starting to connect the dots between their conversations about my being dead weight and my sudden decision to sell the house, but he's not quite there yet. That's when I decide to help him along. "By the way," I say, casually, as if I'm mentioning the weather, "I heard what you said about me yesterday, about me being dead weight." The colour drains from both of their faces as they realize that their private conversation wasn't as private as they thought, that the old woman they dismissed as mentally declining was sharp enough to overhear and remember every cruel word they said about her. Kendria's face turns 3 different shades of red as the full weight of her words comes crashing back to haunt her, and I can see her mind racing as she tries to figure out how to talk her way out of the hole she's dug for herself. Chris, you don't understand, she starts, her voice taking on that fake sweetness she uses when she wants something from me. I was just frustrated about the medical bills and the stress. I didn't mean anything personal by it. But we both know she meant every single word, and the way she can't meet my eyes tells me that she knows I know. She's lying through her perfectly whitened teeth. Dead weight. I repeat slowly, savoring each syllable like I'm tasting wine. That's what you called me, isn't it? Your husband's mother, the woman who raised the man you claim to love, reduced to nothing more than dead weight dragging down your perfect life. Kyler looks back and forth between us like he's watching a tennis match, finally understanding that this isn't just about a house sale or financial stress. This is about respect, dignity, and the way his wife has been treating his mother when she thought no one was listening. I never said that Kendria lies desperately, but her voice wavers and we all know she's caught. You must have misunderstood what you heard. I would never say something so cruel about you. I almost laugh at how pathetic her denial sounds, especially since I heard her say those exact words with such conviction that they're burned into my memory forever. The woman who spent months making me feel like a burden in my own home is now trying to gaslight me into believing my own ears were lying. Should I call Kyler and ask him what you said? I suggest innocently, pulling out my phone. I'm sure he remembers the conversation about assisted living facilities and how I'm apparently too much trouble to keep around. Kyler's face crumples as he realizes that I heard everything. Not just the deadweight comment, but the entire conversation about shipping me off to a nursing home like an unwanted piece of furniture. Mom, please, he says. And now he sounds like he's about to cry. We were just talking about options, about what might be best for everyone involved. We never made any decisions. We were just discussing possibilities. I look at my son, this man I love more than life itself, and I see how easily he's been manipulated into thinking that getting rid of me would solve all their problems. Kendrea has been poisoning him against me slowly and systematically, making him feel guilty for taking care of his own mother. What would be best for everyone involved? I repeat thoughtfully. And did anyone think to ask me what I thought would be best for me? Did anyone consider that I might have opinions about my own life and future? The silence that follows is deafening, because we all know the answer is no. They talked about me like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person with feelings and preferences and the right to make my own choices. We were trying to protect you, Kendrea says weakly, but even she doesn't sound convinced by her own words. Some of those assisted living places are really nice, with activities and social opportunities and professional medical care. I nod as if I'm considering her explanation, but inside I'm marveling at how she can make exile sound like a vacation and abandonment sound like love. I'm sure they are lovely. I agree. But I wasn't consulted about this protection you were planning to provide for me. I wasn't asked if I wanted to leave my home, my neighborhood, my life. You just decided among yourselves that I was too much trouble to keep around and started shopping for places to put me. My voice stays calm and reasonable, but each word hits like a hammer blow because they know I'm telling the truth. What's that? I ask, even though I have a pretty good idea what he's trying to do. It's $50,000, he says, his voice breaking with emotion. Your share of what the house would have been worth when we inherited it. I know it's not nearly enough to make up for what we put you through, but please take it. Please don't leave us like this. I stare at the envelope for a long moment, thinking about how this money represents everything that's wrong with how they've been treating me. They think they can buy their way out of the guilt they feel for calling me dead weight. Buy their way back into my good graces with cash that I don't need and didn't ask for. Keep your money, Kyler, I tell him gently, pushing the envelope back toward his chest. I don't want payment for being your mother. I want respect, and that's something you can't write a check for. His face crumples like a little boy who's just been told that Santa Claus isn't real, and I feel my heart breaking for him even as I stand firm in my decision. But where will you go? What will you do? You can't just disappear from our lives forever. That's when I pull out the real surprise, the one I've been saving for this exact moment. From my purse, I withdraw a thick folder filled with legal documents and photographs that I've been collecting for the past 2 weeks while they thought I was just packing my belongings. Actually, Kyla, there's something I need to show you. Something about your wife that you need to know before I leave. His eyes widen as he takes the folder from my hands, and I can see Kendrea watching us from the living room window, her face pale with what looks like genuine fear. "What is this?" he asks, opening the folder to reveal bank statements and credit card bills that I never should have been able to access, but that a determined old woman with time on her hands and a few favors to call in can discover if she really wants to. "Those are Kendrea's financial records from the past 2 years," I tell him calmly. "The ones that show she's been stealing money from your joint accounts to pay for things you don't even know about." Kyla's hands start shaking as he flips through page after page of evidence that his wife has been living a double life behind his back. Designer handbags charged to credit cards he's never seen, spa treatments and shopping trips that cost more than most people make in a month, even a separate savings account that she's been funneling money into without his knowledge. "She told you that my medical expenses were bankrupting your family." I continue, watching his face cycle through disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. "But the truth is, she's been spending more on her personal luxuries in 6 months than my medical care has cost in 2 years. This can't be right," he whispers. But I can see in his eyes that he knows it is right. That all those times she complained about money troubles while carrying a new purse or wearing a new outfit are finally making sense. "Look at the dates, sweetheart. Every time she told you we couldn't afford something for me, she was out spending hundreds of dollars on herself. Every time she made you feel guilty about the cost of my medications, she was buying jewelry that costs more than a car payment." That's when Kendria finally works up the courage to join us on the porch, her face a mask of fake innocence that doesn't fool anyone anymore. "What are you two talking about out here?" she asks. But her voice has a nervous quality that tells me she knows exactly what we're discussing. "Just showing Kyla some interesting financial documents," I reply sweetly. "Would you like to explain to your husband why you've been hiding a secret savings account from him?" The color drains from her face so fast that I think she might actually faint, right there on my porch. "I don't know what you're talking about." She lies, but Kyla is already looking at her with new eyes, seeing her clearly for maybe the first time since they got married. "You've been stealing from us," he says quietly, his voice filled with a hurt that goes deeper than anger. "All this time, you've been making me feel guilty about taking care of my mother while you were stealing thousands of dollars from our family." "It's not stealing if it's my money too," she snaps, finally dropping the pretense of innocence. "I work just as hard as you do, and I deserve to have nice things. I deserve to feel beautiful and appreciated instead of trapped in this house with your needy mother who can't even make her own breakfast anymore." And there it is again, the casual cruelty that reveals who she really is, underneath all the fake sweetness and concern for our family's future. "So you decided to solve the problem by getting rid of me," I say, and now my voice has an edge that cuts through the afternoon air like a knife. "You thought if you could convince Kyla that I was too expensive to keep around, you could ship me off to a nursing home and have all his attention and resources for yourself." She opens her mouth to deny it. But we all know the truth now, and lies won't change what the evidence clearly shows. I found something else interesting in my research. I continue, pulling out another set of documents that make her face go even paler. "It seems that 6 months ago you contacted several assisted living facilities to get pricing information. Not for research, like you told Kyla, but to get actual quotes for placing me in long-term care." The paper in my hand shows email exchanges where she discussed my medical condition with strangers shared personal information about my finances, and even scheduled tours of facilities without my knowledge or consent. You were planning this, Kyler says, his voice filled with a betrayal so deep that I can see it physically hurting him. You were planning to get rid of my mother before she even knew what was happening. Kendria starts to protest, but he holds up his hand to stop her. Don't. Just don't. I've heard enough lies from you to last a lifetime. That's when I play my final card. The one that I hope will help my son understand why I had to make such a drastic decision. There's one more thing, Kyler. Something that might help you understand why I can't stay in this family anymore. I hand him a small digital recorder that I've been carrying in my purse for weeks, and his eyes widen as he realizes what it might contain. 3 days ago, I recorded a conversation between Kendrea and her sister. You might want to listen to what she really thinks about you, about me, and about the family she married into. The recording device sits in his palm like a bomb waiting to explode, and I can see Kendrea backing away from us as she realizes that her carefully constructed web of lies and manipulation is about to come crashing down around her. Play it, I tell him gently. You deserve to know the truth about the woman you've been defending against your own mother. His finger hovers over the play button. And I know that whatever he hears is going to shatter whatever remains of his marriage and his illusions about the woman he thought he loved. Kyler's finger trembles as he presses play on the recorder, and Kendria's voice fills the air between us with a clarity that makes her lies impossible to ignore. I can't stand living with that old woman anymore, Kim. She's like a ghost haunting our house, always there, always needing something, always making me feel guilty for wanting a normal life. The sound of her sister laughing comes through the speaker, followed by Kendrea's voice getting more animated as she continues her rant about the burden of having me in their lives. The worst part is how Kyler defends her constantly. The recording continues, and I watch my son's face crumble as he hears his wife's true feelings about him. He's so blinded by guilt and some twisted sense of duty that he can't see how she's destroying our marriage. I married him, not his mother, but apparently that's a package deal I didn't sign up for. The casual cruelty in her voice is even worse, when you can hear her laughing about it, like my suffering is entertainment for her and her sister. What are you going to do about it? Her sister asks on the recording, and Kendria's response makes Kyler physically flinch. I'm going to make her life so uncomfortable that she'll want to leave on her own. I'll make every day a reminder that she's not wanted here, that she's nothing but a burden we have to carry. And if that doesn't work, I'll convince Kyler that she's getting too confused and dangerous to live with us anymore. The methodical way she planned my emotional torture is breathtaking in its cruelty. And I can see Kyler realizing that every argument, every complaint, every suggestion about assisted living was part of a calculated campaign to destroy me. You're brilliant, her sister says admiringly. By the time you're done with her, she'll be begging to go to a nursing home. Kendrea laughs again, that same bright, cheerful laugh she uses when she's talking to the neighbors or my grandchildren. The best part is that Kyler will think it was all his idea. Men are so easy to manipulate when you make them think they're protecting someone. The recording ends with the sound of them clinking glasses together, like they're celebrating the successful destruction of an old woman's dignity and peace of mind. The silence that follows feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds, and I watch my son's face go through every stage of grief as he processes what he's just heard. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally a kind of acceptance that looks like it's aging him 10 years in 10 seconds. Kendrea, he says quietly, not even looking at her. Get out of my mother's house. Right now. Pack a bag. And get out. Kyler, you don't understand the context of that conversation. She starts, but her voice sounds hollow and desperate now that her true nature has been exposed. I was just venting to my sister about the stress we've all been under. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're frustrated. But we all know that the woman on that recording meant every single word. that the casual way she discussed destroying me reveals a level of calculated cruelty that goes far beyond simple frustration or stress. The context, Kyla repeats slowly, is that you've been systematically torturing my mother while stealing money from our family and lying to my face about everything. His voice is getting stronger now, and I can see the man I raised finally standing up for what's right instead of what's easy. The context is that you married me under false pretenses, pretending to be someone you're not while planning to get rid of the most important person in my life. She's not more important than your wife, Kendria shrieks, finally dropping all pretense of being the victim in this situation. I'm your wife, the mother of your children, your future, and you're choosing some senile old woman over me. The words hit him like physical blows, but instead of backing down, he stands taller and looks at her with an expression I haven't seen since he was a teenager, standing up to bullies who were picking on smaller kids. You're right about one thing, he tells her calmly. You are the mother of my children, which makes what you've done even more unforgivable. You've been teaching them that it's okay to treat elderly people like garbage, that family members are disposable when they become inconvenient. What kind of example is that for kids to learn? The truth of his words seems to hit her harder than anything else, because she knows that our grandchildren have been watching this whole drama unfold, learning from her behavior that cruelty is acceptable when it's directed at people who can't fight back. That's when I decide to show them both that this old woman is far from defenseless. Actually, there's something else you both should know. I say, pulling out my phone and opening up a social media app that neither of them would expect me to know how to use. I recorded our entire conversation this morning, the one where you admitted to calling me dead weight and planning to put me in a nursing home without my consent. And I posted it online with a little explanation about what it's like to be an elderly person whose family sees them as nothing but a burden. Kendrea's face goes white as she realizes that her private cruelty is now public knowledge, that her friends and co-workers and neighbors can all see exactly what kind of person she really is behind her perfect facade. You can't do that, she gasps. But I'm already showing them the screen where hundreds of people have shared the video and thousands have left comments expressing outrage at how I've been treated. Actually, I can do that. And I have done that. Turns out people really don't like it when they see elderly abuse happening in real time. This is going viral, Kyla says, reading over my shoulder as the numbers keep climbing. Comments are pouring in from people sharing their own stories of elderly relatives being mistreated, from social workers and nurses expressing professional outrage, from young people saying they're ashamed of how their generation treats their elders. Mom, you're famous. People are calling you a hero for standing up for yourself. But the biggest surprise comes when my phone starts ringing with calls from news stations wanting to interview me about my story. Hello, Mrs. Henderson. This is Channel 7 News. We'd like to talk to you about your video and what it reveals about elderly abuse in family settings. I look at Kendria, who seems to be shrinking into herself as she realizes that her comfortable life of secrets and lies is about to become very public and very uncomfortable. I'd love to talk, I tell the reporter, watching Kendria's face as she understands that this story is just beginning, not ending. I think it's important for people to understand that elderly abuse doesn't always look like physical violence. Sometimes it's emotional torture disguised as concern, financial manipulation disguised as family planning, and systematic humiliation disguised as practical problem solving. As I schedule the interview, I can see Kendria realizing that her career, her social standing, and her comfortable life are all about to be examined under a very public microscope. The last thing I see as my taxi pulls away from the house I called home for 32 years is Kyla standing on the porch holding his children, trying to explain to them why Grandma is leaving and why Mommy is crying. In my purse, I have a new phone number for a beach condo in Florida, a bank account with more money than I've ever dreamed of having, and the phone numbers of 3 different news organizations who want to help me tell my story to the world. For the first time in years, I'm not someone's burden or obligation or dead weight. I'm just a woman who refused to disappear quietly when someone tried to throw her away. And apparently that's exactly the kind of story the world needs to hear right now.